We begin now at the top of Daf Beis Amud Aleph in Meseches Shavuos. This is Shavuos Daf 2a. The Mishnah says, Shavuos shtayim shein arba. When it comes to oaths, there are two which are four. And Rashi explains, Shavuos shtayim shein arba. When it comes to Shavuos, when it comes to oaths, they are two which are four. B'Shavuos bitois vasayim hakosav b'vayikra. Eitzel korban ola v'yored kamer. We're talking over here, when a person takes a Shavuot and he violates that Shavuot, he has to bring what's called a korban ola v'yored. That's a kind of korban that it depends how wealthy the person is that he brings that korban. So shtayim ksivi b'kra, there are two Shavuos that are written in the pasuk. T'chsiv, because it's written in the pasuk, lahara or lahetiv. It says for bad or for good. Umefarish b'mishnah parak shlishi, it's explained in the Mishnah in the third parak, ochel lahetiv, lo ochel lahara. For example, if the person says a shvuah that I'm going to eat, that's something that's good. If he takes a shvuah, he takes an oath that I am not going to eat, so that's something that's bad. Shema anas asmo, because he's afflicting himself. V'hu adin l'chol davar shuhein v'lav lahaba. This would be true of anything which is a yes or a no in the future. The point is that the psukim are talking about something that is happening in the future. But then shein dalid, but then we can also include things that are, as we're going to say in a moment in Rashi, in past tense. Yesh l'rabos mi riboy haksuvim, from the riboy, from the ribuyim in the psukim, we can include kidem afarish b'perek gimel, as will be explained in the third parak. Af davar v'chilufa l'shavra, we can include something and its opposite in past tense. For example, let's say he takes a shvuah that I did eat, but he actually did not eat. Or let's say he takes a shvuah that I did not eat, but he did eat. And the Mishnah continues, Yediyas HaTumah, when it comes to knowledge of impurity, also shtayim, they are two, shein arba, which are four. And Rashi explains, Yediyas HaTumah chiyuv korban ola v'yored. Again, it's a korban ola v'yored. Machmas tumas mikdosh v'kadoshav. That's because a person is impure, and he either enters the Beis HaMikdash or he eats something that is kodesh. Haksuva eitzel Shavuos bitoy. This is written by Shavuos bitoy. O nefesh kisiga v'alfinan v'pirkin she'en hakos medaber le b'tumas mikdosh v'kadoshav. She'nichnas b'shogeg le-mikdash achar tumazu. O achal b'sar kodesh. We're talking about somebody that either entered the Beis HaMikdash by mistake after this tumor, or ate meat that was kodesh. And shtayim shein arba, so there's two which are four. Shtayim ksivi, again, there are two that are actually written in the psukim. T'chsiv nadla mimenu v'hutame mashma shenesalma mimenu tuma v'al yedei oso helam achal kodesh. What it means to say is that the person did not realize that he was tamei, and then he ended up eating kodesh. Hare achas, that's one. O shenichnas lemikdash, or he entered the Beis HaMikdash. Hare shtayim, that's two. Ulefi shein chayv elim ken yoda betchila shenitma. Now the person is only obligated if he originally knew he was tamei. V'achar gach nelma mimenu, but then he didn't realize any longer that he was tamei. Well, achar ma'is, and then after it occurred, no dalo shachata, he realized he sinned. Mishum hachi kari leyediyos. That's why it's called knowledge, because it's based on that kind of knowledge. Shein arba, so it's two which are four, meaning yesh l'rabos min hamikra ochnei chiyuvim. We can add another two cases. Helam kodesh v'helam mikdash v'zocher hu asatuma. Let's say he knew that he was tamei, he remembered the tumah, but he didn't realize that he was eating kodesh, or he didn't realize that he entered the mikdash. And the Mishnah continues, Yitzios HaShabbos, when it comes to taking from one Rishus to another Rishus on Shabbos, again, Shtayim Shein Arba, there are two which are four. And Rashi explains, Yitzios HaShabbos, Shtayim Shein Arba, Hotzi me Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim. Let's say he takes from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim. That can be in either a situation where he's in the Rishus HaRabim and he pulls it to the Rishus HaRabim, or it could be when he's in the Rishus HaYochid and he puts it over into the Rishus HaRabim. Zehu Shtayim, that's two cases. Achas lo omed b'chutz v'hoshid yadu l'fnim. Again, in one case he's standing outside, he stretches his hand inside, and he takes it, he brings the item outside. The other case would be where he starts inside, he takes the chayfetz and he brings it outside. But shein arba, but there's actually four, because you can also have cases where the object is going from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYochid. Yesh lilmod me'elu shekashem shekpida Torah me'rishus l'rishus ba'otzah kachek pida b'hachnasa. Just like by hotzah, which is taking it out to the public domain, so too by hachnasa, where you bring it into the private domain. Again, you can have two cases over there. You can be standing in the public domain and putting it into the private domain, or you can be standing in the private domain and bringing it into the private domain from the public domain. And finally, the Mishnah says, Maros Negoim, when it comes to Negoim, which is Tzaras, they're also Shnayim Shein Arba, they're also, it's two, which is four. And Rashi explains, Maros Negoim, Sham Mitzora, Mevi Aleim Karban L'Tahara Haraso, a Mitzora, he brings a carbon to purify himself, Shnayim Ksuvin B'Mikra. There are two written in the Psukim, and they're called the Se'esu Baheres. They're called the Se'es and the Baheres, Shein Arba, but it comes out to four, meaning Yesh L'Rabos Tolda L'Zu, V'Tolda L'Zu. You can have toldos of each one, you can have subsets of each kind. And the Mishnah continues, and this is with regards to Yediyah Satuma, as Sheyesh Ba Yediyah Betchila v'Yediyah Basof. Let's say he knew originally that he was Tameh, and then he knew also at the end that he had sinned, the Helam Bein Tayim, but there was a lapse of awareness in the interim, and that's when he went into the Beis HaMikdash, or that's when he ate the Kodesh. Harezeh Ba'olav Yored. So such a person, he brings the carbon Olav Yored. Again, that depends how wealthy the person is. That determines what kind of carbon that he brings. Now, Yesh Ba Yediyah Betchila. Let's say originally the person didn't know he was Tameh. V'Ein Ba Yediyah Basof, but he had no idea at the end that he actually committed the sin. He forgot that he was Tameh, and he went ahead and he went into the Beis HaMikdash or ate Kodesh. He had no knowledge. So then how does he get a kapara? The Mishnah says, Seir hanasa bifnim v'yom haKippurim, the seir, the goat that is brought inside, and Yom Kippur, so tola, so they hang in suspension, so to speak, ad sheyivad alo, until he actually finds out that he sinned, v'yavi ba'ola v'yored, and then he's going to bring that carbon ola v'yored. In other words, in the interim, that seir hanasa bifnim and Yom Kippur, they can give him a kapara, they can give him an atonement, but when he finds out that he committed the sin, he brings the carbon ola v'yored. Ein ba yediyah betchila, let's say he did not know originally that he was tamei. Aval yesh ba yediyah basof, but then at the end he didn't have knowledge that he sinned. So then seir hanasa bachutz. So then it's the goat that is brought on the outside. V'yom haKippurim and Yom Kippur mechaper. That's what provides the atonement. Shenemar, as it says, milvad chatas haKippurim. It says besides the chatas of Yom Kippur. Al mash zeh mechaper on that which this is mechaper. This is also mechaper, and it means to say as follows: Maha pnimi ein mechaper el al davar sheyesh bo yediyah. Just like the inner seir, that brings the kapara only when there was some kind of knowledge. Again, as we said, the seir hanasa bifnim, that brings a kapara in a situation of yesh yediyah betchila. So af hachitzon, so too the seir hachitzon ein mechaper el al davar sheyesh bo yediyah. It's only going to be mechaper if there is a yediyah. Again, the seir hachitzon, that's actually going to bring a kapara when he had yediyah besof, when he had yediyah at the end. And the Mishnah continues, Val she'ein ba yediyah lo betchila v'lo basof. Let's say there was no knowledge whatsoever. He didn't know in the beginning, beforehand, and he didn't know afterwards either. So then, se'irei haragolim, u'se'irei rashi chodashim mechaprin. So then the goats that are brought on the holidays and the goats that are brought on Rosh Chodesh, they provide the kapara. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, that's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Rabbi Shimon says, se'irei haragolim mechaprin. The goats that are brought on the holidays, they're mechaper. Avalo se'irei rashi chodashim, but not the goats that are brought on Rosh Chodesh. V'alma se'irei rashi chodashim mechaper. And on what do the goats of Rosh Chodesh, what are they mechaper for? And Rashi explains, again, in a situation where there was Yediyah Betchila and Yediyah Basof, and there was a lapse of awareness in the interim, Hareza B'Karban HaMefurash B'Osa Parsha. Then you bring the carbon that is explained in the Parsha. Lo Asher Chatas Behema, again, it depends how wealthy the person is. For a wealthy person, he brings the carbon Chatas from an animal. Ula Ani Of, and for the poor person, he brings a bird. Ula Dal Shabadalim, and for the very poor, Asiris Ha'efa V'hi Minchas Chota, he brings a carbon mincha. And Rashi continues, the Mishnah said again, if there was a Yediyah Betchila but no Yediyah Basof, so then the Seir Hanasa Bifnim, the goat that's brought inside the Beis HaMikdash, that is Tola. Rashi explains, Shlosha Seirim Nasin L'tzibur B'Yom HaKippurim. There were 3 goats that were made for the community on Yom Kippur. Echad Matan Damo Lifnim, one the blood was placed inside the Beis HaMikdash. V'chaver Mishtalech La'azazel, that was the goat, that the other one of the goats, the accompanying goat, was sent La'azazel. Kimash HaKasav Acharemos, like it's written in Acharemos. V'echad Karab B'Mizbeach HaChitzon B'Musafin, and one was brought along with the other musafin that was brought on the outer mizbeach, that was the outer soyer. Tola, so then it's tola means to say lohagin olav min ha'yisur, and it protects him from afflictions until he determines that he actually sinned and brings the appropriate carbon. Sha'aval b'she'enu yodea shachata, even though he doesn't know that he sinned, yesh lo l'daig shekol hashogagin tzrichim kapara. He needs to worry because when you do something by mistake, you need atonement. L'chashayedu, when you find out. Al makodem yediyah anu shemein. You see that there is a punishment there that's possible before he finds out. Ad she'yivada lo sha'achal kodesh b'tumah. Then when he does find out again, then he'll bring the appropriate carbon. Ein bo yediyah betchila shelo yada b'tumah miyamav. Let's say he didn't know about the tumah at all. Zelo yavo lechlal carbon od liolam. There you're not going to bring a carbon at all. Sharein carbon bo ela al sheyesh bo yediyah betchila. The person only brings his own personal carbon when he had yediyah in the beginning. So then seir hanasa b'chutz v'yom haKippur mechaper. Then the seir that's brought outside and Yom Kippur is mechaper. V'yom haKippurim hu atzmo moel im hakarbonos. It means Yom Kippur together with the karbonos will help to bring that kapara. And Rashi continues, Shenemar, as it says, Besir Hanasa Bechutz, it says by the Sir Hanasa Bechutz, Usir Chatos Echad, Milvad Chatas HaKippurim, V'usir Hanasa Befnim, Hikisham Lochakasav. The Pasuk compares the Sir Hanasa Befnim with the Sir Hanasa Bechutz, L'lamed Sha'al Mash Zemechaper, to teach that what this gives a kapara on, this also gives a kapara on. Ma Pnimi Enu Mechaper El Adavar Sheyesh Bo Yediyah Betchila, just like the Pnimi is Mechaper on something where there was Yediyah Betchila, Dachi Alfina Behedya Begamar, tola ela al davar sheyesh bo yediyah betchila. That's what it says in the Gemara. Af chitzon ena mechaper ela al davar sheyesh bo yediyah. Also by the chitzon there needs to be some yediyah. That's going to be yediyah basof, yediyah at the end. Ma'inenu yediyah basof v'lo betchila. Again, we're talking about yediyah basof and not betchila. Telo asa lichlal karbon mechaper zeh kapar gemura below taliyah. This is going to be a full kapar. It's not going to be something that's just dependent and waiting for him to find out and bring his carbon, because again, in this particular situation, he's not going to bring his own carbon. And Rashi continues, Vim Tomar, and if you're going to ask, Kevan Shukshu, since the two are compared, the Sir Hanasa Bifnim and the Sir Hanasa Bechutz are compared, Yechapru Shneim al Sheyesh Bo Yediyah Betchila, maybe they should both bring a kapara on the same thing. Let's say there's Yediyah at the beginning. V'naf Kamina L'Tuma She'ira Bein Zel Lazel, let's say there was Tuma in between when bringing these two karbanos. Haparach B'Gemara, the Gemara is going to ask this Umashani Law, and the Gemara will answer this question, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Beis Amid Beis.